The clock on my computer screen blinked 11:03 p.m., each tick a jab to my patience. I rubbed my eyes, the fluorescent lights buzzing like a swarm of angry bees, draining what little fight I had left. Another late night in the ringer, office slugging it out with a deadline that loomed like a heavyweight champ. I was on the ropes, but no tapping out yet. Not until I landed this report. My phone buzzed, a sharp uppercut to my focus, a text from Layla. Heading home soon. Can you pick me up? I stared at it, fingers hovering over. Take an Uber, but I couldn't dodge the duty. She was my wife, my partner in this bout called life. Be there in 30, I typed, hauling myself up from the chair like I'd just taken a hit. My back groaned, stiff from rounds of sitting. I snatched my jacket, locked the office door, and stepped into the parking lot. The night air splashed me like water between rounds, cool and sharp. I slid into my car, the engine growling as I peeled onto the empty streets. Suburban Chicago was a ghost town, this late houses dark, street lights standing like refs, calm, almost too calm. I exhaled, shaking off the day's punches. Driving through the stillness, my mind drifted. Work had been a grinder lately, budgets, meetings, the corporate jab cross. But home was my corner, my reset. Layla and I had our rhythm, dinner, Netflix, dreaming up a future. Kids had come up lately, not a full sparring session, just shadowboxing the idea. I grinned, hearing her laugh in my head, that teasing lilt, my pocket-sized powerhouse. With her, I was untouchable. The condo loomed ahead, and I shoved those thoughts aside. Duty called. I pulled up to Matthew and Emma's place, a squat beige box fading into the dark. The porch light flickered, winking at me like it knew something I didn't. I cut the engine and fired off a text. Here. Then I waited. 5 minutes. 10. Nothing. My fingers drummed the steering wheel, a restless beat. Maybe she was caught up, chatting. But that light kept twitching, shadows jerking across the walkway. A warning bell rang in my gut, faint but there. I brushed it off too many late nights playing tricks. I climbed out, the air nipping at me, and hit the buzzer. No answer. Light leaked from a window, though, so someone was home. Curiosity suspicion pulled me around back. I crouched by the first floor window, peering through a slit in the curtains. My breath snagged. Beer cans and chip bags cluttered the living room. Emma sprawled asleep on the couch. But back there, two shapes moved too close. My stomach twisted. Was that? No way. I leaned in, pulse hammering, trying to decode the shadows. Then her laugh, Layla's laugh, soft, intimate, a sound I'd claimed as mine. The ground shifted under me, and I gripped the sill to stay upright. What the hell was happening? I parked outside Matthew and Emma's condo, the engine ticking as it cooled. The street was dead houses, dark, streetlights casting long shadows like referees watching a fight. I texted Layla, here. Then I waited, thumb tapping the steering wheel. 5 minutes. 10. Nothing. My gut twisted. She always replied fast. I glanced at the porch light, flickering like it was mocking me. Something felt off, but I shoved the thought down. Maybe she was just caught up talking. I climbed out, the night air biting at my knuckles, and hit the buzzer. No answer. Light leaked from a side window, though, so they were home. I crept around back, curiosity or suspicion pulling me like a magnet. Crouching by the first floor window, I peered through a gap in the curtains. My breath hitched. The living room was a mess, beer cans, chip bags. Emma sprawled asleep on the couch. But in the back room, two figures moved, too close, too familiar. My stomach dropped. Was that Layla? With Matthew? No, no way. Then I heard either laugh, soft, intimate, a sound I thought was mine. The ground tilted, and I gripped the sill to stay upright. My heart hammered, each beat a punch to the ribs. I had to see clearer. I shifted, squinting through the dim light. There they were, Layla on her back, Matthew on top. tangled in a way that left no room for doubt. My blood turned to ice, then fire. I grabbed a rock from the ground, my hand shaking. I wanted to scream, to break something, to make them feel this pain. I hurled the rock at the window. Crash! Glass exploded, shards spraying like confetti. Emma jolted awake, bleary-eyed. Layla and Matthew froze, staring at me like I was a ghost. I climbed through, glass crunching under my sneakers, ignoring the sting in my palm where a shard nicked me. "What the hell are you doing?" I roared, charging at Matthew. He scrambled back, but I was faster. My knee slammed into his cheek, a clean hit. He hit the floor hard, groaning. I straddled him, fists flying, pounding his jaw. "You son of a..." I couldn't finish the thought, just kept swinging. Layla screamed, "Alex, stop. It's not what you think." But her voice was a knife, twisting deeper. Emma stumbled over, yelling, "What? How could you?" Her face crumpled as the truth hit her. Matthew tried to block my punches, but he was weak, dazed. "Get off me," he grunted, but I didn't care. I wanted him to hurt, to bleed like I was bleeding inside. "How long?" I spat, pausing mid-swing. Layla looked away, voice small. 6 months. 6 months, half a year of lies. Emma snapped. "You're disgusting," and hurled a beer can at them. It bounced off Matthew's shoulder, foam spraying. I grabbed a lamp, smashing it against the wall. "You think you can do this to me?" I shouted, my voice cracking. Layla reached for me. "Alex, please," but I shoved her hand away. "Don't touch me." The room-spun furniture toppled, picture frames shattered. Emma joined in, chucking whatever she could grab, her sobs mixing with curses. Matthew crawled to his knees, blood trickling from his nose. "We didn't mean..." "Shut up," I kicked him back down. My knuckles throbbed, but the pain felt good, real. Questions ricocheted in my head. How did I miss this? Was everything a lie? Did she ever love me? I wanted to scream them at her, but the words stuck in my throat. Layla slumped against the wall, tears streaming. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "Sorry?" I laughed, bitter. "You're sorry?" Emma stood beside me, panting. "You're both trash," she spat. I looked at Layla, the woman I thought I knew, and saw a stranger. My chest tightened, a hollow ache spreading. I trusted her, built a life with her. Now it was rubble. I stepped back, breath ragged. "We're done," I said, voice low. "I'm done with you." Layla's eyes widened. "Alex, wait." But I turned, stumbling toward the broken window. Glass crunched underfoot, a fitting soundtrack to the wreckage. I climbed out, the night air slapping me awake. Emma followed, her face streaked with mascara. "What now?" she asked, voice shaky. I glanced back at the condo, the light spilling out like a wound. "Now," I said, "we make them pay." Glass crunched under my sneakers as I climbed through the shattered window, the jagged edges snagging my sleeve. The living room reeked of stale beer and betrayal. Matthew lay sprawled on the floor, groaning, his cheek already swelling from my knee strike. Layla hovered over him, her face a mask of panic and guilt. Emma stood frozen by the couch, her eyes wide with shock. The air crackled with tension, thick enough to choke on. "What the hell, Alex?" Matthew wheezed, struggling to sit up. Blood trickled from his nose, staining his shirt. I ignored him, my gaze locked on Layla. 6 months? I spat, my voice low and dangerous. "You've been screwing him for 6 months? Layla flinched, tears streaming down her face. "Alex, please." "Shut up," I roared, my fists clenched so tight my knuckles ached. "Don't you dare try to explain this away." Emma finally snapped out of her daze, her voice shrill. "You bitch, how could you do this to me?" She lunged at Layla, claws out, but I caught her arm. "Not now, Emma," I growled. "We'll deal with them later." Matthew staggered to his feet, swaying. "Look, man, it just happened." My fist connected with his jaw, a solid right hook that sent him crashing into the coffee table. Wood splintered, and beer cans clattered to the floor. "Just happened?" I snarled. "For 6 months?" Layla screamed. "Stop it, you're going to kill him." I rounded on her, my anger a living thing. And what? You think I care after what you've done? Emma picked up a lamp and hurled it at Matthew. It missed, shattering against the wall. You cheating bastard, she shrieked. Matthew cowered, arms raised defensively. Emma, please. Don't you Emma me. She grabbed a handful of chips and threw them at him, the crumbs scattering like confetti. I turned back to Layla, my voice deadly calm. How many times? In our bed? While I was at work? She shook her head, sobbing. No, never at home, I swear. Liar. I grabbed a framed photo off the shelf for a wedding picture and smashed it against the wall. Glass rained down, glittering in the dim light. Emma joined in, chucking a vase at Layla. It sailed past her head, exploding against the doorframe. You were my friend. I trusted you. Layla ducked, her hands raised. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Sorry doesn't cut it, I spat. You think an apology fixes this? Matthew tried to stand again, but I kicked his legs out from under him. He hit the floor with a thud, gasping. Stay down, I warned, my voice icy. Emma grabbed a bottle of whiskey from the counter and took a swig, her hands shaking. I can't believe this. My husband and your wife. I nodded, the reality sinking in like a sucker punch. We're both screwed. Layla reached for me, her fingers trembling. Alex, please, let's talk about this. I slapped her hand away. Don't touch me. Don't ever touch me again. Matthew groaned, clutching his side. Maybe we can work this out. Work it out? I laughed, the sound harsh and bitter. You think there's any coming back from this? Emma threw the whiskey bottle at him. It bounced off his shoulder, splashing amber liquid everywhere. You're dead to me, Matthew. Dead. I looked around the room, the broken furniture, the shattered glass, the wreckage of our lives. My chest tightened, a hollow ache spreading. I trusted Layla, built a future with her. Now it was all ashes. We need to go, I said to Emma, my voice hoarse, before I do something I'll regret. She nodded, her face streaked with mascara. Yeah, let's get out of here. I turned to Layla, my gaze hard. We're done. I'll have my lawyer contact you. Her eyes widened. Alex, wait. But I was already moving, stepping over the debris toward the broken window. Emma followed, her heels crunching on glass. As we climbed out into the night, I heard Layla's sobs and Matthew's pained groans. The cool air hit my face, a slap of reality. I glanced back once, seeing the light spilling from the shattered window like blood from a wound. Emma leaned against me, her body shaking. What now? I clenched my fists, the sting of cuts on my knuckles grounding me. Now, I said, we make them pay. We walked to my car, the night swallowing us whole. The engine roared to life, and I peeled away from the curb, leaving the wreckage behind. But the real fight was just beginning. The diner was a relic from another era. Its red vinyl booths faded and cracked, the jukebox in the corner humming an Elvis tune. Alex slid into a booth, the seat creaking under his weight, the vinyl sticking slightly to his jeans. Emma sat across from him, her eyes red-rimmed but sharp with determination, her fingers drumming a restless beat on the chipped Formica table. A waitress approached, her name tag reading Flo in crooked letters. What can I get you folks? She asked, her voice raspy from years of shouting orders. Coffee black, Alex said, his tone clipped. Same, Emma added, barely glancing up. Flo nodded and shuffled off, her orthopedic shoes squeaking on the linoleum floor, leaving them in a tense, heavy silence. Alex broke it first, slamming his fist on the table hard enough to make the salt shaker jump. I still can't believe it. 6 months. Emma sighed, her breath shaky. I know. I feel like such an idiot for not seeing it. Me too, Alex admitted, his jaw tight. But we're not the ones who should feel ashamed. They are. Emma nodded, her lips pressing into a thin line. So, what are we going to do about it? Alex leaned forward, his voice dropping to a gritty whisper. We need to hit them where it hurts, their new shop. Emma's eyes widened, a flicker of surprise crossing her face. You want to sabotage their business? Exactly, Alex said, his words sharp as knives. Bad reviews, rumors, maybe even some fake complaints to the health department. Emma considered this, her fingers tightening around the edge of the table. It could work, but we have to be careful. We don't want it tracing back to us. Don't worry, Alex assured her, his tone steady despite the fire in his chest. I'll make sure we're covered. Emma hesitated, her gaze dropping to the table. But what if they find out? Matthew can be unpredictable. Alex reached across, his rough hand closing over hers. Hey, we're in this together. I'll protect you. Emma's smile was weak, barely reaching her eyes. Thanks, Alex. I just don't want anyone else to get hurt. We'll be smart about it, he said, squeezing her hand. They'll pay, but we'll stay safe. Flo returned, setting down 2 chipped mugs with a clink that echoed in the quiet diner. Anything else? No, thanks, Alex replied, his eyes still locked on Emma. As Flo walked away, Emma took a sip of her coffee, grimacing at the bitter taste that coated her tongue. So, how do we start? First, we gather intel, Alex said, leaning back in the booth. Everything about their shop when it opens, who their suppliers are, all of it. Emma nodded, a spark igniting in her eyes. I can dig online, maybe even scope out the shop in disguise. Alex chuckled, a low, rough sound. Like a spy? Something like that, Emma said, a small smile tugging at her lips. Then we spread rumors, Alex continued, his mind racing. Tell people they're selling knockoffs or something. Emma's smile faded, her voice hardening. But is that enough? I want them to suffer like we did. Alex's jaw clenched, his voice tight with barely contained rage. Trust me, it will be. Once their reputation's trashed, their business tanks. They'll be left with nothing but debt and regret. Emma's eyes gleamed, a mix of hope and vengeance swirling in their depths. I like the sound of that. The diner smelled of grease and burnt coffee, a scent that grounded Alex, pulling him back to simpler days. He took a sip, the bitterness matching the knot in his gut. Emma stirred her coffee absently, the spoon clinking against the mug. The night air buzzed with anticipation as Alex crouched behind a dumpster across from Matthew and Layla's new boutique. The shop glowed like a beacon, its sleek glass storefront reflecting the neon lights of the downtown strip. A banner overhead screamed, "Grand Opening," in bold red letters, fluttering slightly in the breeze. Laughter and music spilled out onto the sidewalk, where a small crowd mingled local influencers, curious shoppers, and a few suits Alex pegged as investors. The scent of expensive perfume and hors d'oeuvres wafted through the air, a stark contrast to the stale beer and rust stench clinging to his hiding spot. Emma was a shadow beside him, her dark hoodie pulled low over her face, a disposable phone clutched in her gloved hand. She'd gone full spy mode tonight, black leggings, sneakers, even a cheap wig she picked up at a thrift store. Alex had to admit, she looked the part, her nervous energy channeled into a quiet focus that mirrored his own. Ready? He whispered, his breath fogging in the chilly air. Emma nodded, her eyes glinting with a mix of fear and resolve. Let's do this. Alex pulled out his own burner phone, its screen dimmed to avoid detection. They'd spent the last week prepping fake social media accounts loaded with scathing reviews, a list of local gossip hubs primed for rumors, and a burner email already queued with an anonymous tip to the health department about mold in the back room. Tonight, though, was the big play. Crashing the opening with chaos subtle enough to dodge suspicion but sharp enough to cut deep. First wave, Alex muttered, tapping out a text to a group chat he'd infiltrated under a fake name-a-mix of petty locals who loved drama. Heard the new shop selling fakes. Check the tags keep stitching. He hit send, watching the message vanish into the ether. Within minutes, he knew the whispers would start circulating inside. Emma's fingers flew over her phone, posting a blurry photo she'd snapped earlier of a rat, really a rubber toy from a dollar store, near the shop's dumpster. The caption read, "Spotted this at the grand opening. Disgusting." She uploaded it to a local review site from a VPN-masked account, her lips twitching into a grim smile as the post went live. Done, she said, her voice barely audible over the hum of the crowd. Alex peeked around the dumpster, his heart pounding a steady rhythm against his ribs. Inside, Matthew strutted like a peacock, all slick hair and fake charm, shaking hands with a guy in a tailored blazer. Layla hovered nearby, her laugh too loud, her dress too tight, a perfect picture of the life they'd stolen from him and Emma. 6 months ago, Alex had been planning a future with her. Emma had been sharing a bed with Matthew. Now, here they were, united in the shadows, wielding betrayal like a weapon. Time for phase 2, Alex said, his voice low and hard. He dialed a number he'd memorized, a friend of a friend who owed him a favor, a guy with a knack for theatrics. Go. Across the street, a beat-up sedan rolled up, its engine coughing like it was on its last legs. The driver, Tommy, a wiry guy with a permanent, smirkling doubt, shouting, "Hey, Matthew, where's my money, huh? You stiffed me on that last shipment." Heads turned, glasses paused mid-sip, and a ripple of unease spread through the crowd. Tommy revved the engine for effect, peeling out with a screech that left tire marks on the asphalt. Emma stifled a laugh, her hand clamping over her mouth. That was perfect. "Tommy's a pro," Alex said, a flicker of satisfaction cutting through his tension. Now they've got a scene to explain. The front door swung open, and Matthew stormed out, his face flushed with anger, scanning the street. Layla followed, her heels clicking furiously, her voice shrill as she hissed something at him. The crowd thinned slightly, a few people slipping away, their murmurs growing louder. Alex could almost taste the doubt settling over the night like a fog. Emma nudged him, her eyes bright. "My turn." She slipped away, blending into the shadows along the building side, heading for the alley where the shop's back entrance sat unguarded. Alex kept watch, his pulse quickening as she disappeared around the corner. The plan was simple but bold. She'd sneak in, plant a few evidence items, some torn knockoff tags, and a baggie of sugar labeled mold spores. A harmless prank with a sinister look, then slip out before anyone noticed. If the health department tip gained traction, it'd be the nail in the coffin. Minutes dragged like hours. Alex's fingers tightened around his phone, his mind racing with worst-case scenarios. Emma. The city lights blurred past as Alex drove, the hum of the engine a steady backdrop to his thoughts. Emma sat beside him, her head resting against the window, eyes half closed. The adrenaline from the night's chaos had ebbed, leaving a quiet satisfaction in its wake. They'd done it, struck a blow that Matthew and Layla would feel for a long time. But as the high faded, a hollow ache settled in Alex's chest, a reminder that revenge, no matter how sweet, couldn't undo the past. He glanced at Emma, her profile softened by the streetlights. "You okay?" She nodded, a small smile tugging at her lips. "Yeah, just processing." "Same here," he admitted, his grip tightening on the steering wheel. The road stretched ahead, a dark ribbon cutting through the city's glow. It felt good, though, seeing them scramble. Emma chuckled, a low, throaty sound. "Did you see Matthew's face when Tommy pulled up? Priceless." Alex grinned, the memory sharp and satisfying. "Yeah, he looked like he'd swallowed a lemon." They fell into a comfortable silence, the kind that didn't need filling. Alex turned onto a quieter street, the buildings giving way to suburban sprawl. The night air seeped through the cracked window, carrying the scent of damp asphalt and distant rain. Emma shifted, her voice soft. "Do you think this will be enough to make them stop?" Alex's jaw clenched, his mind flashing to Layla's tear-streaked face, Matthew's bloodied nose. Maybe, maybe not, but it's a start. Emma reached over, her hand resting on his arm. "We did good tonight, together." He glanced at her, warmth spreading through him at the contact. "Yeah, we did." They pulled up to Emma's apartment, a modest building tucked between a laundromat and a bodega. Alex cut the engine, the sudden silence pressing in. Emma unbuckled her seatbelt but didn't move to get out. "Thanks for tonight," she said, her eyes meeting his. "I couldn't have done it without you." Alex shrugged, a half smile playing on his lips. Same here, we make a good team. Emma's gaze held his, something unspoken passing between them. For a moment, Alex wondered if there was more to this partnership, a spark beyond shared vengeance. But he pushed the thought aside too soon, too complicated. Emma broke the silence, her voice light. So, what now? More revenge plots? Alex laughed, the sound rough but genuine. Maybe. Or maybe we just move on. Emma's smile widened, a glimmer of hope in her eyes. I like the sound of that. She leaned over, pressing a quick kiss to his cheek. Good night, Alex. Night, Emma, he replied, his skin tingling where her lips had touched. He watched her walk to the door, her steps light, almost buoyant. As she disappeared inside, Alex let out a breath he hadn't realized he'd been holding. The night's events replayed in his mind. The chaos, the satisfaction, the fleeting sense of control. But beneath it all, the ache remained, a reminder of what he'd lost. He started the car, the engine's rumble, a familiar comfort. The road home was quiet, the city asleep. Alex's thoughts drifted to Layla, to the life they'd planned, now shattered. Anger flared, hot and bright, but it was tempered by something new: acceptance, maybe, or just exhaustion. By the time he pulled into his driveway, the anger had cooled to a dull throb. He sat in the car for a moment, the silence pressing in. The house loomed dark and empty, a stark contrast to the life it once held. But as he stepped out, the night air crisp against his skin, Alex felt a shift. The weight of betrayal still clung to him, but it was lighter now, shared with Emma, diluted by action. He unlocked the door, the familiar creak greeting him like an old friend. Inside, the house was still. The remnants of his old life scattered like ghosts, Layla's forgotten sweater on the couch, a photo of them smiling on the mantel. Alex picked up the photo, his thumb brushing over her face. For a moment, he let himself remember the good times, the love they'd shared. Then he set it down, face first, a quiet goodbye. In the kitchen, he poured himself a glass of whiskey, the amber liquid catching the light. He raised it in a silent toast to new beginnings, to moving on. The burn of the alcohol was a welcome distraction, a cleanse for the soul. As he settled into bed, the sheets cool against his skin, Alex's mind wandered to Emma, her laugh, her strength, the way she'd stood by him tonight. Maybe, just maybe, there was something there worth exploring. But for now, he was content to let the night's victory carry him to sleep. The city outside hummed with life, but in his small corner of the world, Alex found a sliver of peace. The fight wasn't over. Matthew and Layla would regroup, and there'd be more battles to come. But for tonight, he'd won, and that was enough. He closed his eyes, the darkness a balm, and drifted into a dreamless sleep, the first in months.